All right, our next topic today. We saw a recent report, and I laughed just even thinking about to go into this. Saw a recent report talking about or asking the question, and it was, it's a column, and we'll have it in the show notes, but just asking the question, is weed too strong now? And it really went through in terms of how the concentrations of THC in what's sold, particularly with legalization and, or decriminalization, legalization, depending on where you are in the country, the medicinal piece of it, where the concentrations of THC have increased and it's standardized, but have increased in a lot of what's being sold and so forth. And just the effects of it are so much more potent than when it was just stuff that you would get, I guess, black market from a standpoint. And so that argument was made, and, that caught our attention because it's an interesting kind of question, from the standpoint of, oh, hold up, like this is something that illegally or legally people have done for a really long time, and to little effect relatively other than, like the over criminalization and stuff like that. But, it's something that's been a part of our culture for a long time. So to see this question to ask, one, it's like, well, did people really want it to be pure, stronger, harder, and all that kind of stuff? And then now that it's here, is this progress or is this a concern? Or, it just raises a lot of interesting questions. So Tunde, what do you make of the concern, or the question raised and the concern of whether weed is too strong now?
I'm not sure, since I have no idea about this topic at all. I've never.
You don't feel equipped to have expertise on this one?
Yeah, sorry. No, but that's funny. Sitting here thinking, shoot, I've been smoking weed for 30 years, man. That's crazy. I started. I took my
firsthand. Tell us.
My first hit was when I was 16 in high school, and I'm 46 today. So with a licensed marijuana card from the state of Florida, sir, right, which is valid because I just had to renew it 3 weeks ago. So I am legal in my marijuana intake, so I can have this open conversation without.
So I was going to say, so you can tell us
without threat of the authorities. Yes, beating down my door. So
no decree needed there, man.
Yeah, no. Now let me tell you, man, it's interesting. So number one, having it legalized is so much better because you're right. I don't feel like I got to go, to somebody's house to go get a bag of something and drive home with it and be worried about that. So I'm glad that they decriminalized it, in the various ways in various states.
And the craziest thing, man, like the world didn't stop spinning. It was like, I was sure, in the 90s, if that ever happened, that, the world would stop spinning and, people would stop going to work and, like people would stop playing sports. But it didn't happen. Like things continued on ho-hum, so go figure.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I showed up to work yesterday. So, okay. So we're good. No, it's so, yes, it's interesting about the potency. Cause you're right. I mean, it's number one, I've read the studies about, some people having a higher rates of psychosis, things like that, in reaction to some of the higher levels. I mean, I'm not surprised because it's interesting. Once industry gets their hands on something, usually there's changes. And so in this case, it appears that once marijuana was kind of industrialized, right, the production of it, the potency of it, all that is allowed to be more concentrated and increased because the supply, the logistics of it is no longer diffuse. It's not just guys in the mountains of Mexico just, growing weed and just trying to get it over the border and all that. You've got
most of their energy going towards that type of stuff as opposed to how can we standardize this? How can we, really industrialize this? Yeah.
And also that's what I mean, like it's growing in the mountains and nature and all that versus in some grow house somewhere in the United States with lights on the plants for 24 hours straight, almost, the plant version of steroids being injected into them, like the ability for science and scientists to really manipulate the DNA and the genetics of the flower and the potency of the THC within it. So that's what I mean. Just like tobacco, I mean, cigarettes are not the same tobacco that George Washington was smoking out of a pipe in the 1700s, right? Like that was just natural tobacco leaf out of the ground. Now we know it's got all this chemicals and things in it, and it's no different than our food, right? And it's no different than other things that we as hunter gatherers, we could take from nature, but now we take from
even as
industry.
farmers, we could grow, but just we were constrained with, like the amount of changes and, like you said, the optimization that we could
Yeah.
put in place.
So that's what I'm saying. It's no surprise that marijuana has gone that direction, where industries figured out how to refine as well as kind of manipulate the actual genetics within the plant. So that's why to me it's kind of like, yeah, okay.
It definitely it's
I
an
can just
interesting.
take 2 hits instead of a whole joint then.
Well, that was kind of one of the things mentioned in the article, is that the kind of the enjoyment of it changes, because you're sitting there, like each time you touch it, it's like, yo, let me make sure I'm okay, as opposed to being able to just sit there and relax. I think you raised a good point as far as how industry, gets its hands on it and does what, I'll put in air quotes, optimize it, because again, it's optimizing it from one standpoint, but that may ruin the experience for others and so forth. I think back to like pharmaceuticals. I think back to like alcohol, like you pointed to tobacco, but alcohol, for example, is like, the goal of the alcohol industry is not to give us the highest concentration of alcohol, to not continue like they could, but the highest selling alcohol isn't the 190 proof stuff, like it's almost like an agreed upon thing where like typical, bottles of liquor, or, maybe 40% alcohol, 80 proof, or a little higher than that, maybe getting up to 110 or something like that. But it's not to try to jam as much alcohol as, into whatever beverage, whatever liquor bottle that you have. It's to create an amount that is deemed to be kind of, that works basically. It gets you where you're trying to go, but it's not Everclear, it's not 190 proof or whatever. So I wonder if that's where we're going with the marijuana industry, where right now it's in the process of just going up, 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 up. But if there will be kind of a leveling off, or even a drop down at some point, saying, okay, we think that a 15% THC content is kind of a good standard. And again, this isn't going to be something legislated or regulated necessarily, but where kind of the industry determines that, people seem to like this. We don't have to keep trying to make this a higher and higher THC content. We can just say, okay, 20% seems to be, that's where people like it. They can sit there, they can, do their normal process and enjoy it, and not sit here and, 1-2 hit. And then they're just like, oh my God, I'm so out there, versus, where it was before. So ultimately, it seems like we're at the beginning of a process that seems to happen, and then with the pharmaceutical drugs, I was indicating, like, a lot of that stuff is naturally derived. And so then, or supplements, like a lot of that stuff is naturally derived. And you'll look at the bottle a lot of time, it's standardized to X% active ingredient. And that's been through testing and then kind of trial and error of what is effective, what's safe, and, and so forth. So I wonder if we're going to get there with the weed industry at some point, basically, where they kind of find some good level where you still might have the super potent stuff for the people who want that. They still do sell Everclear, like 190 proof, 95% alcohol, or whatever they call it, wherever you are. But like, that's not, you got to go find that in the liquor store. Like, it's not going to be, you'll see a ton of 80 proof everywhere, a couple of, maybe 100 proof, 110 or whatever. But you want to go find the super concentrated stuff. It's like a specialty item more so than anything. Yeah. So I wonder if we're heading towards that, and that's what we're living through right now.
I think it's a good observation. I think we're already starting to see that. I know that Governor DeSantis here in Florida has proposed legislating a maximum THC quantity of 30%. And so that if someone made marijuana, some company produced it with a higher content, I guess they couldn't sell it in the state. And I think your allusion to alcohol is probably where I could see it going, because that's where it is now. Like, I think about the dispensary I go to by my house. They have, I can choose as low as 9-10% THC and as high as 30. So then I play that game sometimes. Sometimes I'll buy, a little, one container that has, 15% or 12% for when if I want to just smoke and be able to still kind of move around and operate, maybe on a Saturday afternoon, or if I'm doing chores around the house. But if I want to get, stuck on the couch playing some PS5 one night, I might go to 25-30% and really enjoy that Call of Duty game I'm playing. So, that's kind of like you're saying about alcohol. It's like, if I want to have a nice chill night with my wife, not get too crazy, nice glass of red wine, Yeah.
Yeah.
But if me and you want to go, hang out, watch a game, maybe I'll have a couple old fashions and,
Yeah. No, that's a
feel a
good,
little
that's
bit
an
more
excellent.
relaxed. So I think,
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy from that standpoint. Yeah.
yeah. And which is also to me why, I thought the marijuana industry would take off a little bit quicker. It's amazing looking at, if you follow anyone that follows marijuana stocks and kind of the ETFs that track it. I mean, they're all like down 90% over the last 5 years. It's pretty amazing that from an industry standpoint, it hasn't taken off the way I thought it would, with all these states
Well, you
legalizing.
still got the federal,
That's what
until
I was
they
going to
take it
say.
off
That
the schedule,
yeah, like
lower.
I think they need to do like with alcohol and just say, all right, just like after prohibition didn't work in the 20s, I think the government just needs to say, look, let's say, what is it, 48, 49 states now? There's some sort of legality anyway.
Yeah.
So at this point, just rip the Band-Aid off federally. Let's let the banks deal with it. Let's let people carry it interstate. And
because that's the biggest problem right now, is that from the financial aspect of it is still very disjointed, because under federal law, it's still under the highest schedule with the most addictive and the least beneficial things, and it hasn't been removed. So from a banking standpoint and the financing standpoint, it's still in the Stone Ages basically, which affects its ability to do anything as far as really becoming a viable product from like you said, from the financial product standpoint.
Yeah, so that's but hey.
Well, as long as it's, is the conclusion that weed is too strong now? Do you agree with that, or do you say no? They're doing the right, or they're doing what they need to do?
Again, it depends if I want to be stuck on a couch or if I want to be able to vacuum and wash my windows.
I think that's the answer. Is it there should be choice. There should be choice.
Exactly.
And shocker, you got American people talking about there should be choice. But yes, I think that you can have the strong stuff and you can have but that shouldn't mean that everything needs to go towards let's make it as strong as possible. I guess some things should be like let's have.
Well, alcohol is a good example, right? Some people just like beer. Some people like their 100 proof stuff, and everybody's got a choice.
Some people want 5%, 6%. So cool. So I think we can wrap this topic from there. We appreciate everyone for joining us on this episode of Call Like I See It. Check out our other 2 parts that aired earlier today, and also check out our library on YouTube or your podcast app. I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde Ogunlana.
All right, we'll talk to you next time.